Hey everybody. Happy Sunday. Sunday fun days. I love me a good Sunday fun day. I am so excited for this conversation. Y'all know I'm always slow with my music, but I got my music ready. Erica, so happy to have you here with me today. I'm going to start sending out my text messages, inviting folks to join us for this amazing conversation. Erica, I hope you do the same. We're going to let Stevie Wonder get us in the mood for this conversation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll definitely do so.
Absolutely. Happy Sunday, everybody. I hope you are relaxing, enjoying your weekend. Hope it's been a good weekend for you. We're going to invite some people to come into the room and have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm doing my last thing now as well.
I know, right? I'm like, let me send these last little invites out. This is my jam. All right. Let me make sure this is the right link. Pretty sure it is.
Oops, sorry. I put a post up. Oh, so this is the link. Okay.
Yes, that is the link. So yes, inviting people to come into this space this afternoon on this Sunday fun day. For those of you who don't know, Erica and I will be talking about, oh my God, all the things. One, being, come on, licensed clinical social worker.
Come on.
I see those letters, okay?
Okay, I want to make sure I put that on there.
Come on, licensed clinical. So we're going to talk about being a licensed clinical social worker. We're going to talk about end of life social work. I feel like this is the industry that like people don't even know exists. And what it entails. And then we're going to talk about traveling social workers. So for those of you like myself who have that traveling spirit, this is the conversation for you. For those young folks who are uncertain of career paths and choice and what I want to do, this is an opportunity for you to really get an idea of what that looks like. So, okay, let me send this to one more group. I do. You can't go wrong with Stevie Wonder. It makes me want to clean up. Is what it makes me want to do. Like
it does remind you back in the day when your mom or grandma put the music on. You know it's time to clean.
That's that Saturday morning. Were you a Saturday morning family cleanup or Sunday?
So I feel like it was probably Saturday and Sunday. So it kind of varied. It was definitely a weekend clean, but nothing in particular. You couldn't be in bed beyond 9 o'clock.
Baby, get up, rise and shine, okay? We were definitely a Saturday morning family with the pine saw, and then a fabuloso when that became the thing. So anyway, happy Sunday fun day. Thank you guys for tuning in live. For those of you who are seeing this, seeing the recording of this, thank you so much for viewing our recording. And I want to invite you to share this with at least 10 people because this is going to be a very important conversation. And I want to make sure that as many people as possible are able to engage and hopefully can relate and resonate to this conversation. So, one, share this conversation. Two, we're about to get into it. So if you hear live now, send this to like 10 people right now. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tanisha Jointer. I am the founder of Invested Consulting Firm. And at Invested Consulting Firm, we provide customized training to community partners and school districts across the country around healing and healing center practices, trauma-informed practices, all things social and emotional learning. Like we do all of those things. Um, this is our celebrating Women's History Month series, as well as making sure we are shouting out and celebrating Social Work Appreciation Month. So, all of our conversations this month have been centered around either social workers or women appreciation or women making history. And so, as you all know, like I went through my Rolodex, who I know that's doing some bomb dope work. And I hit up Erica like, hey girl, can we please have this conversation? Again, just as a social worker and understanding the field of social work, like her industry is such a beautiful, beautiful space to be in. It is such a I feel like it's the space of social work that is oftentimes overlooked. People like, no, I don't want to do that. I could say personally for me, it was the first thing I said in grad school is I want to do that. But it is such a beautiful space to be in, and I appreciate you and social workers like you who are doing this amazing work. So we want to elevate and highlight folks who are working with our seniors and helping family in transition planning for them. So that's our conversation today. I'm going to turn over to Erica to introduce herself first. And then we're going to just jump right into it because we got a lot in a little bit of time. Erica.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you so much again for this invitation. I am honored and excited to be here having this conversation with you. So, an introduction about myself. My name is Erica. I am a friend, a daughter, a wisdom seeker, and then of course in life, I'm right now operating as a social worker, licensed clinical social worker with a personal passion focusing on end of life care and moving forward in the space of end of life doula or death doula. So yeah.
So I have not discussed this publicly, but I'm gonna do it now because it's just so fitting to this conversation. So for those of you who don't know, last May, May 4th to be exact, my aunt was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer that metastasized to her brain. And I had stepped into this role of caregiver. And for those of you who are in a caregiving role or who are not in a caregiving role, let me tell you something. It is nothing more humbling than to be in that role. And all of the toughness that I sometimes I think present with, that humbles you and it goes away. All of this being in this role is testing everything that I know possible, right, in just my own being. And we seem to be approaching end of life care. And so this conversation is so right now for me because I am living this literally right now. I am on a journey with someone and watching this thing unfold. So yeah, this is gonna be a good conversation. It's gonna be tough, so bear with me. But yeah, so Erica, how did you get to this? How did you get to this work? Like how?
Okay, so that's a great question. In the sense of how you get to this work, I do feel like this work kind of chooses you. Going into the space of social work, I know I initially did not know what I wanted to do when I started. That journey started back in high school. Kind of just, I thought I was going to go into the military and, get some money and do some stuff. But then 9/11 happened. And I was like, I'm not going to the military. Fuck that. Can I say that? Okay. I'm like, I'm not going to the military. Forget that. I'm not going to go fight. So then I ended up going to college because my high school career did not speak about college as it relates to like what I was really going to be doing. My grades did not lead me to that path. So I ended up moving forward and getting into NIU, my fellow alum, my friend, where I met you, and just took classes that I found interesting. And a lot of them had to do with human behavior and things like that. And so it kind of fell into forms of sociology. Going from there, just people watching, interacting with people and things of that nature. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And I know that I remember a lady from high school, she's my counselor. Um, and I used to think that she didn't do anything. And I remember thinking like, I'm going to do what she was doing. She didn't do anything, walk around the halls and look good all day. And I'm just like, I'm going to do that. So I'm like, I'm going to I'm going to go into social work in some capacity, but I didn't realize I had to have a master's because with NIU, our school program did not have a BSW program.
Mm-hmm.
People went into FCNS or sociology,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, and ended up moving forward to having to get their master's. Fast forward, as I kind of figured out what kind of population I wanted to work with, you kind of have to be willing to be open to all of it. So I went through all of the stages. I worked with children, the homeless population, teen girls, all of that stuff. And none of those things really spoke to me in the way that the senior population did. And a lot of programs, I will say, as far as our master's programs, didn't really speak to that either, as far as like the geriatric population until a little bit later into the programs. But
Mm-hmm.
you kind of just figure your way through it. Nonetheless, I remember how I ended up in the space of end of life care. I was transitioning out of working in shelters with young women.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I ended up at a nursing home as the director of social services, not really knowing what I was doing, just kind of working on the policy aspect and some of the activities and things of that nature. And I remember a lady who came into the facility to provide services. It was a hospice agency. Came into the facility to provide services to a family and one of our residents, and she was just so happy. And I was really happy and content with what I was doing with the population I was working with.
Yeah.
After working with the kids and getting stressed out and the families and things of that nature, I did find my niche throughout my career in
Mm-hmm.
the geriatric population. And I thought that I was going to be good and set there with nursing home placements and things like that, and figuring out how I can service that community
Mm-hmm.
in that capacity. Nonetheless, this woman, she was really happy doing what she was doing, taking care of um, the the admission process. And I was like, just because she was happy about what she was doing and it's a sensitive time, kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah.
And I ended up moving forward into hospice care shortly after. And with that, it was a beautiful experience to be able to support families and walk with families in a difficult time that's usually reserved for family and friends, to be a part of that. And so it was a privilege. And it's not one that I take for granted. It's not one that um, it was so enriching for me personally.
Yeah.
And then I started to see some of the areas where I felt that we could be supported. We, as a Black community, could be more supported and more engaging in that process.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it happened for me. It was kind of just bumping along throughout my career and then finding my niche with the geriatric population and then finding a more specified niche in hospice care, end of life,
Yeah.
and just kind of figuring out how I can create a new narrative in that space, especially with me presenting the way that I present. I typically have a bubbly personality, and this is a time when people want to quiet their voices, talk really low, and I know this is difficult. And I'm just like, it's difficult whether you're at a normal tone or at a softer tone. Please, what are you saying? you know, um, don't
No lies.
don't
No
soft
lies.
talk.
No
Just
lies.
talk. What's going on? So I wanted to be able to normalize the conversation, and working in hospice for about 4 years gave me that opportunity, and then it just kind of birthed into something a lot more.
So for those of you who did not catch it, let me let me drop the gems that I picked up. One
Thank
was
you.
like it's choosing you, right? You are the I don't know how many people I've had these conversations with, and each of you all have talked about the profession choosing you. And even me, like as a former school social worker, and even now in this space, like this work chose me. And I think it's so important for us to really listen to ourselves and trust ourselves in that way that the professions will choose you. I knew going into grad school, first day of grad school, just like who you want to work with. I was like, not kids and not old people. And fool me once, fool me twice, right? This is what I'm doing, right? I spent my whole career supporting children in school as a school social worker, and now I'm spending part of my career understanding and supporting someone that I love with every part of me in this moment. And to your point, Erica, like it really elevates the need for families that look like me to have people that look like me have this conversation and be on this journey with them, because it is not easy at all. And the amount of like just comfort that provides for people to just plainly tell me, like, tell me what it is, like tell me what I need to do. You know what I mean? Like, I absolutely agree with that. So for those of you who are indecisive or uncertain of what your career path should be, listen to yourself. Listen to that voice way deep down in that gut that's telling you, like, man, try this, or be willing to try something new. We always think we got this one path, and never a direct path to where we want to go. So the biggest gem I heard was to be open and allow the profession to choose you. The next thing that I heard was that I felt like was a gem was just walking with families. Oftentimes in social workers, a lot of social workers come to the profession with this savior complex, right? I need to save the people. I gotta save the people of color, because if I don't come save them, they just go. And that's not what social work should be about. Social work is very much about walking with people. And the last gem I heard was like creating this new narrative. We think about end of life care as this just sad and somber time and moment. But what I think is providing me comfort right now in this moment is really thinking about the life, thinking about the years that I had, and the time that I still have, right? As opposed to what I know that's happening, but what time do I have and how do I maximize and enjoy that time? And so I want to encourage folks again who are parenting their parents, because that's such a thing that we're not talking about, but
Mhm.
normalizing and changing that narrative, how we parent our parents, how we support our elders as they navigate their journey, and again, most importantly, that we are willing to walk with them. So thank you, Erica, for dropping those gems. And if y'all ain't catch it, I just want to double back for you, because I think that's important for us all to really take in.
Mhm.
um
One thing I wanted to add with that is in the process of it, kind of like of this process choosing me as well, I had like a full circle moment. So I mentioned to you all the lady who I thought it didn't do anything,
mhm.
walking the halls, looking fly as ever. The counselor, the school social worker, I would see her periodically. She did help me get into do the things I need to do so I can get into the chance program. Because like I said, my career was not the best.
Shout out Chance program at NIU,
Okay, my
Mr.
career was not
Negro
the best,
Mitchell. He
and
was
she
the
helped me.
bomb.
Yes, and she helped me with those applications and things like that. Um, how it came to full circle for me, and how I knew that this is something that was definitely my calling, was as a hospice social worker at one point, going homes. You never know who you're going to. You just kind of see names on lists when they come on your census. I got to do the assessment. I got to see what I got to get for this family, and I got to move forward and things of that nature. That name on the list looked slightly familiar, but I couldn't recall it too much. I'm
Hmm.
still not going to say her name, but nonetheless, I went forward. This is Burke. I went forward and I saw the name. I'm like, oh, okay. And I go to the house, and it was her daughter. Her daughter was also a social worker, licensed clinical social worker. She was working remotely. She was licensed in California. And she was doing what she had to do. And I went through, she said, go ahead and go to the back, go see my mom, whatever. I'm like, okay. So as I'm walking through the home, I'm like, this, is this, she was a CVS? And I'm like, oh, is this my, and it was my counselor.
Shut up.
And it was like a full circle moment for me as my counselor. And I went forward and I was like, okay, this, I'm supposed to be here, you know? And I was talking to her. I'm like, Miss, you know,
Oh
how you
my
doing? I'm like, you want to
God.
remember me? And I was just using her, you know, she was eminent. And it was just like, this lady was the one who kind of helped spark my interest
Oh
in this
my
career.
God.
Cause she walked around looking fly all day. So I'm like, that's kind of, it was full circle for me.
You never know. I've learned this as a school social. Like, you never know who you touch. And
Hmm.
like that woman made such a difference in your life. And to be able to double back and give that
Years
back to
later.
her and pour
Hmm.
into her the way she poured into you, that is such a beautiful, beautiful thing. Oh
Yeah.
my God. That is crazy.
Yeah. And it was beautiful. I got a chance to go to the service. The family acknowledged myself as well as the agency that
Oh
I was
my
working for at the
God.
time. And we were able to and she was done up and fly just like she had been
Just like,
before.
come on, baby.
I
Come
think
on.
for me, it was just, man, you know, so it was an honor to be able to see this woman, how I remembered her. And then she also was able
Mm.
to exit and leave how I've known her before as well. So yeah.
I Yep, I'm like, I'm in my feelings, so I'm not gonna keep going. So, can you explain to us, like, what all does end of life care? What does that look like?
So end of life care, you know, typically with death is going to hit us all. Okay. Death is the great equalizer. Okay. So I think that's one thing we have to always kind of bring it back to, regardless of who you are, where you were, how you did people, we're all going to, you know, meet the
Transition.
maker,
Yep.
transition at some point in time. So that can also happen early in the early stages of the cycle of life or at the end stage, which is where typically it's usually most acceptable because that's when
Mhm.
it's supposed to happen, you know,
Mhm.
in your geriatric phase, in your elder stage. However, death nonetheless can be very difficult regardless of where it's at. However, the end of life stage kind of goes for uh, advanced directive care planning, having your forms and documents in place. That's a general term, and it can include like things like living will, trusts, durable power of attorneys for financial, as well as health care, and code statuses, whether it's like how
Mhm.
you would like, well, if something was to happen, would you want to be a full code, which is have all life-sustaining treatments provided, or would you want to be a DNR? So if your heart stops on its own, you know, nothing's done.
And it's
Um,
the innovate one too, right? Do not intubate.
that's it. So
Okay.
yeah, it's different states. Sometimes on that form for the DNR, that's on there as well.
Okay.
So different
I like
states
that
have
too.
different forms for different things, so it can vary. So it is important to discuss advanced directives with either the social worker or your lawyer, or even someone like myself, a deaf doula, who is able to go and talk about this a little bit more plainly. But I won't go into detail for each form
For
because again,
sure. For sure.
it can be different for each state. So yeah, so it's end of life care planning. It's also service planning. So I would like to change that as opposed to
Wow.
funeral service planning. I would like to
Yeah.
kind of change it as life remembrance planning.
Yes.
Um, and then of course, what else? Advanced directives, end of life planning. And there was something else I had as well. Oh my God, I just had a brain fart.
It's okay. Listen, because so first of all, I'm like business boom, business idea. The entrepreneur in me is like
Mine.
ding ding ding
I
ding
already
ding
got
with
it.
different ideas, but then also just like the human in me and being in this space and being at this time, right? I was sharing with the neurologist the other day, like, I really wish somebody would have told me, insert all of these things, right? Because as a social worker and just who I am by nature, right? I'm a fierce advocate. I'm gonna ask for all the things. I'm gonna ask all the questions. I want to meet the manager. I want to meet, like, I'm that person. But there was still so much that I didn't know that I needed to know, and you don't know what you don't know. right?
100%.
And what I hear you say is it's so important to have someone like you on this journey with you, because you do know, like, you have an idea of the things that families need to be made aware of. One. Two, what I hear you say, and I hope that anybody that's tuning in and anybody that, watches this later, and again, share this with 10 other people, is we all will transition, but having conversations about the transition is absolutely necessary. Having it with someone like you, having it with an attorney, having it even starting just as a family. Let's have these conversations about how we would want to live, how we would want to be cared for should our capacity to care for ourselves shift, because it can, and it can in an instant. And people's, opinions about what is living versus how a person actually lives can
Hmm.
be so different. And so I
Yes.
want us as people of color to, like, for real, y'all, let's have these conversations. We talking about Pookie and Ray Ray and who done did what and who done got pregnant and who, like, let's talk about this too. Because it's
Mhm.
so necessary that we begin to plan. So again, if you are parenting your parent or your parent yourself, right? Let's create a space to have these conversations with your children, with your siblings, with whoever would be your next of kin, about how you would like to be cared for, and not just have a conversation. Erica, correct me if I'm wrong. We need to start putting this mess in writing.
Yes. So one of the biggest things that I found going through this process, and when you talk about the business, I'm like, that's you're gonna get to that too, right? Okay. so so yes, it's really important to have these things in writing. And understand that it can be changed or modified at any
Yes.
time. I
Yes.
think people think about like if in writing that this is set in stone. It is set in stone for. I mean, it's not set in stone in the sense that you can't if it's irrevocable or can't be modified in any capacity, but it needs to be in place in case something happens at any point. It really is important to not reserve these type of conversations and these type of forums for when you are in the hospital.
Yes.
Have it now while you currently have your capacity. Because
Yes.
I like to say this: your death is your decision. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like that. What has to happen is up to you. This a lot of times people run into situations where like, oh, where depending on the state, you have they do surrogacy laws. So if it's not anything in writing, some states have next of kin things of that nature, but that can be very convoluted if it doesn't move forward,
Yeah.
if people don't know those rules.
Yeah.
And not even all health professionals in the hospital know that, you know what I'm saying? So it's really important that you educate yourself, or seek services that are able to provide that type of support for you. But yeah, if you don't have that in writing, it can cause a lot more issues and a lot more distress in a time that's already distressing emotionally.
Absolutely.
Like it's really hard and burdensome to have to not to have to kind of like push down your emotional uh breakdown to kind of
Come
like
on,
figure out
say
the
that.
business
Come
aspect.
on, say
It's
that.
like if someone had just to take it like a day or a couple hours to just get this out the way, I can then cry because I'm sad
Breathe.
what's happening to you and not
Absolutely.
have to stress about this. So yeah, it doesn't have to wait until the person is in a hospital. That's the worst time to start making these type of decisions because everyone's going to be pressuring you. You're going to be on multiple timelines. So just do it when you're
Multiple
not
phone
stressed.
calls and you talking to everybody, because nobody in a hospital talks to each other, so everybody is talking to you.
Mhm.
um yeah, so okay, so end of life care, sum it all up. uh People, make sure you talk to your people. Make sure that we are putting things in writing, making sure that we are planning. We plan for everything else. We planning for the family vacation, we planning for Pookie graduation, we planning for Ray Ray prom.
Plan
We
for weddings.
Come on, we
Plan for
planning
your
weddings.
death.
Come on, we planning all of these things, right? We can also plan this celebration of someone's life as well.
Hmm.
Um, so you also now you are doing travel and social work, right?
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that. Like what is a traveling social worker? What do they do? How do you get to it? Give us all the tea. We want to know everything about it.
So with travel social work, I first heard of travel social work, and I didn't really understand it when my professor had mentioned it to me. She was an adjunct professor, and she was in the field for a long time. And she said, "Oh yeah, I travel all over with social work." And I was like, "She said you can do it too." And so, and I was like, well, "What are you talking about?" She didn't go into much detail, but that was the first time that I heard about it while I was currently in the program. But she
Mm,
didn't go into detail. It
okay.
wasn't until years later, after I had made my transition, my relocation to Arizona, where one of the ladies who I was working with in case management let me know that she was doing travel social work for a couple of years and then she just wanted to get a permanent position. I'm like, oh, she let me know that there's opportunities to do different assignments, do crisis assignments in different states under the guise of travel social work. And I'm like, okay. And then enter the pandemic.
Dum
Where
dum
and
dum.
dun 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 where we were having, and then there was like all these shortages with nursing, and then
Everything.
also there were strikes going on even in the unionized social worker fields, usually with Kaiser and things of that
Mm,
nature. So because of like healthcare conditions and things like
for
that.
sure.
So when she let me know about that, you kind of like reach out to different agencies who are trying to basically fill those vacant positions for the time being. It's just like doing like temp work, and they ship you out. And it's, obviously it's more financially lucrative, but it's unstable. You can get there and then not have a job because it got
Mm,
canceled. So, it's really hectic, but it can be, something that you do in the in between. Again, with the pandemic, it caused all these shortages, and it impacted everybody across the board in the healthcare field.
yeah.
All the industries, like from aides to techs to obviously physicians, things of that nature. And I kind of was able to kind of get in that space. And it was a lot of agencies reaching out to kind of fulfill this need for, clinical support. And I kind of like just jumped in it when I got an opportunity.
And so, as a traveling social worker, are you doing the same in the life care, or is it like all facets of hospital social work? Like,
So
what does
with
it mean based on assignment? I'm sorry.
so it's based on the assignment. So typically with travel social work is usually case management.
Okay,
Okay. So you're doing discharge planning and things of that nature.
got
It's
it.
still the requirement needs because they also have it for nursing. Nursing, their stresses were a little different from ours, from the social work capacity. Obviously nurses are doing bedside work. They are more exposed to patients. So their turnover rate and the need for them to be fulfilled in those positions is a lot higher and a lot more significant. Okay.
Yeah,
I can't speak specifically about the nursing, but I do know that they were under a lot of duress as well. And that kind of helped create that boom, but it had a little bit of a trickle down effect into the case manager space. And as far as case management goes, my role is again just discharge planning and resource advocacy. I
okay,
don't do any of the end of life in that space because
okay,
they have the palliative social workers for that.
yep,
If that was a contract that was available for that, that is my specialty and my expertise. So then that would be something I can kind of like transition into pretty quickly, but it would still be under the institution of the hospital.
got it.
So the difference for me with my space is kind of wanting to be more of a third party advocate and be for the family.
Yeah,
Although the hospital says the workers are for the families as well, they're also in the interest of the hospital.
yeah,
I
yeah,
have no personal interest other
yeah.
than coming for the family, and so I
Right.
can kind of like break it down a little bit more. But that's not the role I'm playing in travel social work in that space.
I got you. And so, one of the things one of the things I think I'm slightly curious about is because I follow a few people who are traveling medical professionals. Sheena, the girl from YouTube or Instagram, she is hilarious. It's kinky some anyway. She's a traveling nurse and she talks a lot about the different places she's at. And I just wonder, even as a traveling social worker, just about equity in the healthcare industry, right? Like going from cities, states, wherever to wherever, and just the difference in care. And I mean, you ain't got to give me no whole, I guess, because we know that there are inequities in healthcare, right? We know there's inequities
Mhm.
in all things, right? But healthcare, COVID really elevated that the disparity in healthcare. We know there's disparity in education, so like you don't have to go like completely into it, but I think just speak to some of the yeah, what does the inequities look like in your assignments?
So the disparities and equities kind of go more so about resources. So yes, I can't speak about the healthcare aspect
Right.
of it. We already know that that's there. So then when
Indeed.
it comes to the resources, you try to, make things work for families. There's definitely like a gap in the different hospitals that I've worked that I've been able to see. Obviously, sometimes in the county hospitals, they do have access to more resources, but that's so flooded that you still got to go. Like, yeah, you're homeless. Like they may help you with an application to get you on some type of list. However, that's going to take a few weeks, and we need this bed. You know what I'm saying? So your issue is done. Here's the shelter. You got to peace out. And it can be kind of taxing in that sense because it does sometimes feel like you give a lot more no's than you are able to. But it's interesting because it sometimes seems like the quickest way that some people to even get on the list for anything is through the hospital. Even though it's still going to be a wait list, they kind of make the hospital a one-stop shop in certain communities. And that's kind of really unfortunate because it does kind of take up it makes an issue for someone who might really need that space because they had a stroke. You know what I'm saying? So, but you with your gangrene toe that we've chopped off are still here. And so, and you're ready to go, but we can't fulfill this person's needs. So, I mean, it is kind of an issue that I see a lot based on the communities that I'm operating in. And a lot of the hospitals that are having the shortages are oftentimes the ones that are in the inner cities or supporting multiple communities. So it can just be a big issue.
I even see that now, like in the care that we're receiving at the current facility, right, which is in the suburbs versus the care that we received in the city, right.
Mhm.
It's such a drastic difference in just care. It is to your point, speaking to your point about like access, like you tend to see people in the city utilizing the emergency room as like my primary care,
Yeah.
and the emergency room staff are just completely overwhelmed because you got
Mhm.
this room full of people that never moves, right. And so I just think it's important for us all to again take that stock and inventory, right? Like, how are we caring for ourselves before we even get to the hospital? What are we doing to care for ourselves? Like, how are we thinking about the foods that we're eating, thinking about our movement? All of those things are equally important. But then the push, I think, for us all is to challenge our healthcare industry, right? Because how do we create equitable access and resources for people? I know that from sitting in the emergency room, all of the times that I've sat in the emergency room, I did not want to be there. Nobody wants to be there. So when we have inadequate health care in our communities, right, we go to the emergency room. So just a push or something for us all to be mindful is the need for high quality and adequate health care, regardless of our zip codes, regardless of our socioeconomic status. And I know that's like, girl,
No, I mean, I
we
hear you, and I
dreaming,
think
but like we should have a right to it.
you definitely do. So th- yeah, you definitely have a right to it, but it doesn't take into account sometimes, like you said, people's personal decisions on how they want to live their lives. Um, the unfortunate thing is, again, the challenge in the healthcare system, it is being challenged. I mean, they're challenging on a regular basis. It's just the fact that we're seeing it in real time because some of the changes that may come are coming kind of slowly. So there have been some significant strides being done, but it doesn't mean it's not coming at the expense of some people's health in the current moment.
Absolutely. Whew. I mean, it's so much to talk about with this. I'm just like all over the place. From traveling social worker to end of life care to just like um one of the questions, just for a lighter note of this, right? So you've been doing travel social work for how long?
I've been doing travel social work now for about 2 years.
Okay, so in the 2 years and all the places you travel, have you found a place that is like, oh my God, this is my favorite city?
To be honest, I feel like I haven't been to enough places to kind of give that type of title yet. However, I am currently stationed here in DC. So I really was really excited to do that. I had an option to come back to Chicago, or go to DC. I'm currently licensed in DC as well, so I really want
You
to come to
better come on,
DC.
get all these license.
Man,
Yes.
look, it's all leading up to the business, okay?
Okay, listen. So let's slide right into this business then. What's going on there? What are we thinking?
Well, the great thing with doing travel social work is kind of exposed me to a lot of the resources and again the inequities that I'm seeing in in these various communities. One of the common undertones as it relates to back to end of life is just lack of education and lack of preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the people who are oftentimes having the most difficulty with having this conversation are people in the Black and Brown communities,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be frustrating on one hand, but it's also an opportunity where I see that I can fulfill a need.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why my goal is to operate in a third party sense where I'm not with the hospital and I'm certainly for the family, and I'm not with the actual agency that will provide whatever type of service that is going to be rendered to that person who's in need of that. Again, my role and my goal is to support that, but it's still the same thing no matter what state I'm in. No one has paperwork in order. No one wants to talk about death. The conversation about death is approached very gingerly, as it should be, but it's in a way that people are really stagnant in making a decision, because they're hoping for something else. And I think hope is necessary. However, it can also be a barrier to the reality of the person
Absolutely.
who is laying in bed. And I think that people have to your point you made earlier, it's not just about the person who's actually needing the care. The family is in that process as well. Like, death is impacting everyone. And I I want to say death continuously because that's what it is. We can use comforting words like transition and
Mm-hmm.
passing,
Mm-hmm.
but they're dying or they're dead and death
Mm-hmm.
is coming. So so it's all the same. And that's what we need to
Mm-hmm.
kind of make sure we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so in that space, it kind of just makes me want to kind of normalize the conversation and
Mm-hmm.
still talk about it with a smile on my face
Yeah.
because it is mostly highlighting and refocusing on how that person lived and how you want to be remembered. But I think people forget that the death is really short. The dying process might be a little bit longer. The evident part of the dying process might be a little bit longer. Like the year that you might have seen the transitions of your loved one. However, they lived a lot more life than they're dying. You know what I'm saying? So
Wow.
and so to focus all that emotional energy on just this short part, you negate the other 40 years you had with them. So that's what a lot of people tend to do. And it's kind of just like repurposing and refocusing. It's about mindfulness and how you want to look at it. So in the space for me transitioning with my own personal passion project leading into business, is with DBT, being mindful about how you want to think about that. And
Mm-hmm.
also, like I said, end of life doula, death doula, supporting families through this process, providing education. The education is going to be free, obviously, but the services at the part of going through paperwork, notarizing things, those will be fee for services. And the therapy that'll be provided as well with grief.
I love it. I I'm like I'm trying to stay in this conversation as the professional, right? But again, being a person who is in this, like literally living this right now, I'm
Yeah.
like, you're absolutely right. Like I have focused so much of my energy on this transition, right? The grieving, the lack of grieving, because to your point, like stuff gotta happen, right? I gotta like go to doctor's appointment. And I told the doctor the other day, like I am literally somebody's walking medical record. I can tell you every appointment and everything we've done. And I think you're right. Like but I'm missing the 78 years of life, of joy, of happiness, of even
Mhm.
sorrow, even in that time, right? Like I am negating those things, and I am so focused on this time. So I really appreciate you elevating that. Um and I hope for somebody else that hits home for them too, and it provides them with some comfort of just that transition is just this small part of a person's time on this earth with us.
Mhm.
And I definitely am a person who like uses softer words, right? Transition is my jam. And I think because for me it just makes it easier for me to show up in the space. But I also realize like what is really happening too. So thank you for, normalizing having the necessary conversation.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow. I'm just like I got so many thoughts and things brewing and going. Um so I know you mentioned moving from a passion project to a business. Has that like have we started that? Where are we in that process?
So yes, I definitely have started that. So with doula or end of life doula is not the same with the type of birthing doula. So there's like different certifications and things like that. There is a clearinghouse that can give you like some letters because everyone feels really comfortable with having extra letters behind their name, just so I can say I'm in this. Well, if you think about what a doula was, it was actually just an elder in the community who was very
Yeah.
wise, who
Yeah.
focused on bringing in babies or whatever they was doing. It was that person. You know what I'm saying? So that is my space with end of life doula, and that typically is the population that's typically serving that is like chaplains, social workers, and some hospice nurses as well. But there is a clearinghouse that provides you with some backing just to kind of say like, yes, they're
You're
knowledgeable.
official.
Yeah, you're knowledgeable about that, but it's not required.
Okay.
Okay. My experience in hospice and my clinical licensure
For
already support
sure.
that, provides me with that. But I definitely know that it's a niche. So it's my jam. I really enjoy it. I actually light up about talking about the end of life process. So, so moving forward with that with my business, there's a certification for DBT that I want to have to again to focus on mindfulness. So that's just one more thing that I was going to add because I want to focus on that part and
Mm-hmm.
grief certification.
Mm-hmm.
So once I get those two things, I already do have like the LLC in place.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm not operating under it right now, but I am providing the services nonetheless to people who know that I do this. So like for instance, it could be you. There was already a couple people who I've already worked with on the side doing this. That's kind of how that works right now. So in working with them is having me create my actual plan
For
for
sure.
what it's gonna be doing.
So the gem, I hope anybody that's listening, I hope y'all caught it, was like one, build a plane while you're flying it. You don't have to wait to the
Mhm.
end to start doing it, right? If you have that passion, that thing that is sitting on your heart, and you keep, I think this is a good idea, I think this is a good idea. Sometimes we just gotta roll the dice and go. And do, because it is a good idea and it can be of a service to somebody else. So if you ain't catch that, I'm saying it so you can catch it. The other thing, Erica, is like, how can people contact you, right? So if somebody's listening to this video and they like, oh my God, again, like I text you this morning, like, hey, just so you know what I mean? Like, how can people connect with you to have more conversations about this?
Yes. So I'm more than happy to have this conversation with anybody. So you can reach me on my Instagram, Pure Pulchritude. Um, and that is P-U-R. Is it on here already somewhere? I should
I
probably do that
don't
real
know
thing.
that we linked it, but we can definitely link it when we upload snippets of the video.
Okay. So yeah, so Pure Pulchritude I can be reached there, or you can also reach me on that's probably the best form right now. It's my social media.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So people can, so if you or somebody you know is in the space of end of life care, end of life planning, please do reach out to Erica. If you cannot get Erica directly, you all can reach out to Investor Consulting Firm, and we will gladly connect you with Erica.
100%.
And we are at Investor Consulting Firm on Instagram, and we are also email Investor Consulting Firm LLC at Gmail. Or you can hit us up on our website, investorconsultingfirm.com. Any of those three ways you can reach us, and we will put you in contact with Erica. Because again, y'all, as a person who is literally walking on this journey right now, I tell you, it is such a difficult journey, and it is so much that you won't know that you don't know, and having someone who is knowledgeable about the journey ahead will make a world of difference in how you navigate it, and just give you that peace and comfort that you need, because you too are in the throes and the thrust of it. Okay, so I know we got about 10 more minutes, Erica, and I want to make sure that I am respecting your time. Any other like just key gems you want to make sure that people know and understand about end of life care and or travel and social work?
Okay, as it relates to end of life care, I want to kind of make sure I do bring home this one point. How you decide to remember your loved one is going to be really important. It's always good to honor how they lived. So if I make a joke, but I'm a traveler, so I'm out here by myself, so anything can happen. So I do have power attorneys in place. I have to do one every state I go to. And I do have my friends knowing what my wishes are in the event of something unpredictable happening. But I know one of the things that I have, and it's so funny, we talk about it because we make light about stuff. We have a bit of a morbid sense of humor. I love cruises. And I also enjoy a cocktail or two, and it may change, like depending on what season I am in my life. So one of the things that my friend has, I told her, I'm like, if something happens, make sure you take me on a cruise. I want to be cremated, and all this is in writing and stuff like that, and people, all my beneficiaries and things of that nature. I'm like, but I want to be cremated, and I want to go on a cruise. And she said, yep, we're gonna get some shirts saying Erica's last cruise. And then she said, I'm going to throw you overboard, the ashes, throw my ashes overboard, and whatever cocktail I'm drinking at that time. So right now it is a twist on an old fashioned. And so I just add pineapple juice and lemon juice. And I'm like, throw that overboard as well, So it's how you want to make it, because it's important to, when having these type of conversations, it's important to try to like break the normal standards that we have that relates to planning funerals and things of that nature. So it's kind of important to like personalize that journey. So however your loved one lived her life, is living her life, had lived her life, it's important to make sure she goes out the same way with a bang.
Listen, it is no doubt. One thing you got to know, my auntie Minnie, she threw all of the parties. Okay, she was the party thrower. So we will have a good old wang dang doodle playing all of the hoochie coochie music. I went to see her yesterday. I said, "You want to put on some hoochie coochie music?" She was, and she just looked up at me. I'm just like, "If you want the hoochie coochie music, I will put on the hoochie coochie music." Okay,
yeah.
And I believe in that through and through. Like, when we go visit, we come with the speaker, and the nurses are like walk by and be like, "Oh, y'all are jamming in here." Absolutely. Again, that's just how she lived her life. And as she is in this space, I'm going to respect and acknowledge and celebrate that every single chance I get.
Yes. And then as it relates to travel social work, I think it's really important to be willing to step out the box as it relates to being willing to just try new things, because it can be kind of scary going to different places and all that other stuff. You're not really being familiar with it. But if you are brave enough to get through Chicago, you can brave any other city throughout the United States. So I think it's a great opportunity for people who I would suggest who already have some experience in social work. It can probably be a little overwhelming for someone who's like new to social work. I would definitely encourage you to get your feet wet and get your bearings in some form for at least a couple of years before you venture into travel social work, because it can be a lot. But other than that, I think this is a great opportunity. There are many agencies that you can just go ahead and use Google and Google travel social work or travel healthcare, and you will get a slew of agencies that do it. There are a couple that are that you might see in your LinkedIn as well, like Total Med and Aya and things like that, and Vivian. So all the different ones you can utilize to try to figure out what type of opportunities are available in your city, or in your state, or in a place that you want to go. But it is a great space. It can be really exciting. I've created great connections with a lot of people. It
Sure.
does help broaden up your network, and your net worth, because that is really important.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. So again, Google is your best friend.
And is this just domestic or even abroad?
They have it abroad as well.
Wow.
Yes, even if you also search on not Instagram, Facebook, travel healthcare, you will be able to
Yeah,
find certain groups, and you can just join those groups and like go through the groups, search in the group once you get accepted, because some of them are
yeah.
like you kind of gatekeep a little bit, but search in the group available opportunities, and you will be able to find.
That's super dope,
Yeah.
especially abroad. That is
Yeah,
amazing.
I would love to go abroad.
Yeah.
That's my next venture, depending on what happens while I'm here. So yeah.
Erica, thank you so much for your time today. It has been a pure pleasure chatting with you, um, having this just again very real conversation with you. And I think this hits a little different because again, I'm in the thrust of it. I'm in the throw of all of this, and I just really appreciate you. My family appreciates you, and just your wealth of knowledge and your willingness to approach a conversation that I think again we oftentimes shy away from. To anyone who is tuning in, I definitely hope this has hit home for you, and wanted to remind you again to share this with people, share this with 10, 12 people. Again, we know that the transition is the transition, and we all will make that journey one day. And so instead of us acting as if this will never happen, like, let's make sure that we take the appropriate steps to prepare ourselves and to prepare the others. On behalf of
Prepare the others.
on behalf of Investor Consulting Firm, I really thank you and I appreciate you. Again, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Investor Consulting Firm, we provide customized trauma training and trauma training and healing centered training to community partners and school districts across the country. You can find us at investorconsultingfirm.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Investor Consulting Firm. I think those are two platforms. Yeah, and sometimes we're on Twitter, and let us invest in you, something like that. But those are the other two ways that are most important. Erica, again, I appreciate you so much. I'm gonna turn it over to you to give us the final closeout word. I know, like, oh, that's a big task. But again, I am just so appreciative and deeply humble and moved by this conversation. So please know I sincerely appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Again, death is a great equalizer. Make sure you reach out to myself or your local social worker, and just to get some information about how to prepare for the inevitable in your state.
And again, people can reach you at where?
Pure Pulchritude. That's PUREPULCHRITUDE.
Thank you so much, Erica. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. And thank you in advance to those of you who are going to share this with at least 10 of your friends.
Yes.
Have a great Sunday fun day, everybody.
Bye.